Lore Master Jito here. I'm the librarian of Azeroth, and I'm bringing you the lore straight from the books. Today we're reading the second section of the Chronicle of Ages by the Chroniclers of the Broken Temple. This section covers Sheilun, a staff crafted by the first monk and became a symbol of sacrifice. Do you know of Xiaohao? Of Kong, the Fist of First Dawn? Of Zhuan, the White Tiger? Do you know of the terrible trials the Pandaren people overcame thousands of years ago? Sheilun is living proof that conflict can be endured, that tyranny can be overcome, that disaster can be averted, and that a caring heart can make it all possible. Sheilun will aid you greatly in the tribulations to come. Carry it with pride and use it to bring your comrades home alive. It feels strange to call Sheilun powerful, does it not? You could not use it to flatten a mountain with a single blow, nor could you use it to burn 1,000 enemies alive with a single thought. Others might find that disappointing, but you are a monk. You know power takes many forms. Others desire the might of a waterfall crashing down on the rocks. You seek the calm, inevitable force of a deep river, the kind that carves canyons into the toughest stone and carries away warriors on its currents without so much as a ripple. Sheilun is the embodiment of that idea. Master Zhensu, Mistweaver of the Terrace of Endless Spring. This staff has seen many battles in Pandaria. It was there when a slave toppled an empire of slave masters. It was there when an emperor saved an entire continent from death. Sheilun contains the legacy of ancient days and ancient spirits. In the hands of those who help others, this staff is very powerful indeed. Long before the Sundering, long before the southern end of Azeroth was known as Pandaria, there was an explosion of life in a particular valley. 4 animal spirits were drawn to that place, the Vale of Eternal Blossoms, and they were in awe of its potential and its power. At the time, dark forces had eyes on the Vale's secrets. A Titan Keeper and his armies of Mogu protected the land from the Mantid and other outside threats, but there was no guidance for what was growing within. These 4 spirits chose to make this place their home. They were Zhuan the White Tiger, Yulan the Jade Serpent, Qiji the Red Crane, and Nuzhao the Black Ox. They would become known as the August Celestials. Under their care, many different life forms emerged near the Vale of Eternal Blossoms. Among them were the wise Jinyu, the mischievous Hosen, and the peaceful Pandaren. They worshipped the August Celestials, and in return, the spirits offered them knowledge and guidance. For a time, there was peace. The peace of the Vale did not last. The terror of the Thunder King shattered everything. A Mogu warlord named Lei Shen revolted against his master, the Keeper Ra-Den, seizing his power and crowning himself the Emperor of all Mogu, and of all who lived within his domain. He enslaved those who surrendered and killed those who did not. First, he conquered the small fledgling Jinyu Empire and their Hosen rivals. The Pandaren fled to the harsh climate of Kunlai Summit, seeking the protection of Zhuan the White Tiger. Zhuan offered them sanctuary for a time, but soon Lei Shen brought an army to the Kunlai foothills. Rather than launching an attack, he issued a challenge. Zhuan would come forth and duel with the Thunder King. Victory meant the Pandaren would live free. Defeat meant the enslavement of them all. Refusal meant summary execution. Zhuan accepted the challenge. The duel between the Celestial of Strength and the Thunder King shook the skies for days. In the end, Zhuan fell. Lei Shen did not have him killed. Instead, he took him to the highest peak, Mount Everest, and had him bound there, forced to watch the Pandaren being led into an era of slavery that would last for thousands of years. But although Zhuan was imprisoned, he was not idle. It is here that the story of this staff truly begins. For millennia, Zhuan was alone, able to do nothing but watch the Mogu Empire inflict unforgivable cruelty on its slaves. Then, he saw the seeds of revolution take hold. It began with a single Pandaren, Kong, who believed the Mogu Empire's reliance on slave labor made it weak. He learned how to fight without weapons, using the strength of his opponents against them, and taught it to many others. Soon he and his followers escaped to Kunlai, where they honed their abilities and philosophies in secret. One day, Kang climbed to the top of Mount Everest to meditate and instead found Yuen. The white tiger's isolation had not made him angry or bitter. It had simply made him eager to help. He guided Kang and the other novice monks in the ways of strength, not simply the strength of raw power, but the strength of endurance. "Look to the little life you can find in these heights," Yuen told him, "and you will know strength." Kang looked and saw scattered, isolated trees growing along the Kunlai ridgelines. They were twisted and gnarled, but he soon understood that they needed to be. They had to endure biting winds and harsh sleet. Their trunks needed to be sturdy and strong, their roots deep. It was those trees that formed the walls of the monks' monastery and supplied the wood from which they crafted their first weapons, not blades, as their enemies had, but staves. Kang brought his to Yuen, who blessed it. Kang named it Sheilun after his son, who had died to the Mogu's cruelty years before. Kang carried Sheilun for years, all throughout the Pandaren Revolution. The staff did not win the war. It was Kang's words that galvanized the Mogu slaves, and it was Kang's will that drove him onward when all seemed lost. On some days, Sheilun was a mere walking stick, but some days it was all that kept the Mogu swords and axes from carving his heart from his chest. Sheilun was there the day Kang died, as he gave his life to topple the last Mogu emperor. With that sacrifice, the former slave freed all of Pandaria. Sheilun was brought back to the monastery in the mountains, serving as a quiet symbol of what could be accomplished through the strength of inner harmony. The monastery itself, however, was not quiet at all. It had never been busier. Yuen warned the monks that, although they were free, they had inherited the responsibility to protect Pandaria from the evil minds that wished to claim it. Every 100 years, the mantid, dangerous insectoid creatures, would swarm the land. All that stood in their way were the brave souls who would fight atop the serpent's spine, a great wall protecting Pandaria from the mantid's ravaging mayhem. The monks who remained in Kunlai dedicated themselves to preparing for this threat, and every 100 years, Pandaren monks lined the top of the serpent's spine to face the overwhelming waves of mantid and risk their lives to protect their land. Yuen would always allow one Mistweaver to carry Sheilun into this centennial battle. It is impossible to say how many lives were saved by those who carried this staff. It is impossible to say how many of its bearers died in service to Pandaria. But their sacrifices were not in vain. The wall still stands even today. Almost 10,000 years ago, this staff passed into the possession of the last emperor of Pandaria. Perhaps you've heard his story, but please understand, before Emperor Xiaohao became a legend, he was an untested, uncertain young Pandaren, completely unaware of the burdens he would bear. On the day of Xiaohao's coronation, a monk from Kunlai presented him with the gift of Sheilun. The new emperor did not know its importance. He did not even recognize the monk as being sent by Yuen the White Tiger. He merely thought it was a pretty ornament. Xiaohao believed he was destined for a life of comfort and ease. Pandaria had been a peaceful land for generations. Why would he believe that would change? A Jinyu water speaker received a vision of the future that shook Xiaohao's confidence. Soon, very soon, an army of demons would invade Azeroth, and the damage would be catastrophic. Pandaria would not survive the devastation that would follow. Xiaohao was greatly distressed. He sought out the advice of Yulan, the Jade Serpent, who told him he would save no one if he did not rein in his emotions, which were out of control and dangerous. Xiaohao would travel Pandaria in search of the wisdom that would save his land. This staff, Yuen's gift, accompanied him. This journey would change Pandaria forever. Xiaohao set out on his travels with his friend, the mischievous and playful Monkey King. Before they got far, a great wind surrounded them. The Monkey King was carried away, disappearing into the distance. It was an event unlike any Xiaohao had ever seen, and he soon found himself struggling to keep up. Doubt and despair rose up in the emperor's mind. and then they rose up outside of his mind, taking form as monstrous creatures. When the jade serpent told him his emotions were dangerous, she had been speaking of the Sha, ancient shadows of a fallen old god. The terrifying Sha of doubt and the Sha of despair confronted Xiaohao. To dispel them, Xiaohao had to listen to Qi-ji, the red crane, and let go of those emotions, ridding himself of their burdens. He continued his pursuit of his friend, following him all the way across the serpent's spine and into the land of the Mantid. When Xiaohao looked upon the Mantid lands from the serpent's spine, he was frozen with fear. To cross into their territory was to risk almost certain death. The Sha of fear held him immobile, paralyzing his thoughts. Niu Zhao, the black ox, was there to remind him that fear only controlled his mind, not his feet. Xiaohao understood, wrested himself free of fear, and walked on. Xiaohao saved the Monkey King from the Mantid's clutches and brought them both back to safety. Now, without fear or despair or doubt, Xiaohao believed himself ready to face the Burning Legion's might. But he saw no need to face it alone. He wanted an army to command, so he climbed Kunlai and finally came face to face with Zhu Wen. The monastery atop Kunlai had changed over the years. What had once been the only refuge for free minds was now the training grounds for the most dedicated fighters in the land. These were the souls who trained to fight the Mantid and all of Pandaria's other enemies. Xiaohao came to them confidently, demanding that they submit to his authority. Zhu Wen saw that he was carrying his coronation gift, this staff, Sheilun, but that it had been nothing more to him than a walking stick. The White Tiger also saw that the Emperor had rid himself of a great many dangerous emotions, but not anger. No, Xiaohao's anger toward the Legion made him brash and reckless. "Why do you fight?" Zhu Wen asked. "To destroy demon hordes, to crush those that oppose me," Xiaohao declared. Zhu Wen offered a simple challenge. "Strike a single one of these monks, and you will have command of them all." Xiaohao accepted. He swung Sheilun over and over again, but he struck nothing at all. The monks were too skilled. They easily evaded him. Xiaohao's humiliation and anger built up, and then they exploded. A great darkness burst forth from him, and in his rage, Xiaohao broke Sheilun over his knee and lashed out with the power of the Sha of anger. When he regained his senses, a monk lay dead, the victim of Xiaohao's unchecked aggression. Zhu Wen watched the Emperor's heart break for the life he had taken, and then Xiaohao knelt humbly, accepting his failure, ridding himself of anger forever. "Again I ask, why do you fight?" Zhu Wen said. "For the people I protect," Xiaohao replied. "For them I would give my final breath." Xiaohao was now ready to fulfill his destiny. He took one half of the broken staff and returned to the Vale of Eternal Blossoms, prepared to save Pandaria. The Legion had invaded the north. A great battle was taking place at the Well of Eternity, and soon, very soon, it would end. Xiaohao returned to his people and tried to give them confidence, but there was none to be given. The Sundering was at hand, and its fury would change the face of Azeroth forever. There was nothing that could be done to stop it. All Xiaohao could do was shield them from annihilation. With Sheilun in his grasp, Xiaohao committed his final breath to protecting his land and all who lived within it. This staff had saved countless lives before, and in one moment, it saved countless more. Free of all his burdens and negative emotions, Xiaohao became one with the land. Through Sheilun, his spirit was transformed, surrounding Pandaria as a great mist. Pandaria drifted away, immune to the chaos that gripped the rest of the world. The Sundering passed the land by, and for thousands of years, the mist would continue to protect Pandaria. But although Xiaohao disappeared that day, Sheilun remained. Sheilun was found shortly after Xiaohao's ascension. Monks brought it to the Terrace of Endless Spring for safekeeping, where it stayed for millennia. Several generations ago, a Mistweaver master wrote at length about its history and meaning. It was not Sheilun that prompted Xiaohao to make his sacrifice. It was not Sheilun that inspired Kang's revolution that freed his people. It was not Sheilun that kept the serpent's spine standing against countless mantid cycles. But it was there for all of those events, in the possession of people who could act. It is the perfect companion to those willing to sacrifice everything in order to save others, and I believe it has not yet found its final bearer. Master Shun Tzu, Mistweaver of the Terrace of Endless Spring. And that was Sheilun, Staff of the Mists, from the Chronicle of Ages in the Monk Order Hall. Let me know your thoughts on the lore we uncovered today in the comments below. If you're craving more lore, here's a few recommendations from the collection to browse. If you like this video, be sure to subscribe to activate your library card and check out more books with me, the Librarian of Azeroth. Thanks for watching.